Now comes to I think, the most important part of the day. We get Nerida Moore up here, Sally Caplan up here, the brains trust behind Gender Matters, and we get to know the real hard stuff and ask them important questions. So please come and join me up the front, ladies. Now, you are the brains trust, though. You are the wonderful gatekeepers of all of this new movement happening at Screen Australia, and I think many people, as I think all of us are here, very excited about that, and we thank Screen Australia for taking the time out for today and providing experts like Generate and Ian and all the fantastic panellists we've had to come and talk to us. So I think, Nerida, you were the great brain behind that, so thank you very much for today and empowering all of us in that element, in that position. I know it's greatly appreciated. But now I'm going to put you on the hot seat, so don't sit comfortably just yet. Okay, so before we move forward, can you tell us a little bit about the thinking behind Gender Matters? Because, it could be contentious, Nerida.
Awesome. But first of all, I'd like to do a shout out to everyone around Australia who's online. Special shout out to Alice Springs. I know that people are using this event today to actually gather in groups around Australia and have networking discussions within the different states and territories. So thank you very much, everyone.
Hi,
awesome. Look, I think, obviously we know there's a problem. Certainly there's been global discussion around this area. There was the Lumina article, which published some of Screen Australia's sort of broad statistics, and shout out to Georgie McLean up the back with her research team. Awesome, totally. And we sort of looked at that and went, oh my God, there's a problem. And then we went, are we the problem? So we very quickly then engaged the research team again, thank you very much. And we had a look at all of our applications coming in and our funding decisions. And we worked out that actually we weren't the problem. But what we did see was that we sort of 50-50% in the emerging sector, sort of gender-wise, sort of broke evenly. But then we saw that there was a problem breaking into the long form. So we kind of know where the problem areas are. And then after much discussion, it was about, well, then do we do something in development? Do we do some more stories? And we went, the three of us in a room went, no, actually, it's broader than that. We're going to have to actually come at this from the bottom up. We're going to have to come at it from the side, and we're going to have to come at it from the top down. So we really need a holistic approach. So again, the three of us came up with the two programs, the Brilliant Stories and the Brilliant Careers. And the idea behind running these two programs together is that we're hitting people, projects and infrastructure, industry infrastructure at the same time. So we're not reinventing the wheel as such, but the way we're looking at it is we're looking for synergies, we're looking for systems. So in terms of the applications that come in, we've said it, and we've said it again, we're not being prescriptive. We have actually put in there some examples of the kinds of areas that we're looking at in terms of people, projects and infrastructure, professional development pathways, business growth and evolution. But we really want those applications to make sense to you, to where you're at, to where you see the gaps are, but also in the way that you can create connections out of that. So, and I know we talk a lot about ticking boxes today, and forgive me, this day was about strategic thinking for all of you and to give you some tools, to give you some things to go home with and to think about, but ultimately we do not want you to tick boxes. This is about taking risks, this is about embracing the challenge, and this is about everybody in Australia, men and women, coming up with some potential solutions. And for God's sake, having fun with it.
I'm going to jump around here and get back to that point. So blokes can apply, Nerida?
Blokes can apply.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Good to know. I'm going to jump back just because there's a couple of key questions I know the industry are eager to ask. Aren't you, industry? A couple of things. Brilliant Careers. Today was about Brilliant Careers and business. But in regards to the Brilliant Story Fund, how much is available? Who can apply? And what should people be thinking about? It's probably more to you, Sally, actually.
It's probably more to me. Yes, Brilliant Stories. We're putting up $1.5 million for this. Anybody can apply, just about. preferably
Just
over
about.
10 years old. But yeah. So we really have completely got away with the eligibility requirements. So the two exceptions are, and I'm sure you all know this, but I'll just briefly run through it again, is it can't be a project that has been submitted to the agency or its predecessors before, so don't get that dusty old script out or a project from your drawer, please. And also it has to satisfy the 3 ticks test, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but basically female writer, female director, female writer-director, which is 2 ticks, female producer and or female protagonist, and as I'm fond of saying, preferably one that doesn't get chopped up, but I'll leave that with you. So that's pretty huge, and we are expecting a massive number of applications. We do, as Fiona said, we do have a little book running on this. It could be...
But that does not mean don't apply.
No, because what I was
Don't think this is going to be too hard.
The only point of mentioning that really, and Nerida's quite right, is please make it competitive. And you're asking, what are we looking for? Make it compelling, make it distinctive, preferably non-generic, something new, something innovative, something of cultural significance, something exciting. Because it will be competitive, and we're most of the time very excited until we think we might have over 500 applications, but that's great. And again, not to put you off, it's 1.5 million, and so it's up to 100,000 for a feature film project, and I say it has to be scripted, and I'll mention why later on, or 50,000 for a scripted TV idea, or 50,000 for an online idea. So it's the first time we've really opened the doors to online and TV in such a broad way.
That's great. That's
which
great.
is exciting, but because it's 1.5 million with those caps, we're looking at possibly 30 to 40 projects. So don't think, oh God, they're going to have 500 applications, there's no point. Put your best foot forward, have a go, have some fun with the video pitch as well. We've had some great ones in the past, and again, it's somebody asked when we were doing this roadshow, why do you have a video pitch? Is it to check whether we're women? I went, no. Good idea though, but so you could, as Fiona mentioned, you could even do something wacky. I mean, I've even seen a video pitch. I'm not necessarily advocating this, because I think we would quite like to see you, because we get a sense of your enthusiasm, but we did see a video pitch with glove puppets, but you know, maybe that.
Glove puppets.
So certainly you remember it.
mind
It's
boggles
distinct.
on
Something
that one,
we're going to
Sally.
remember as we're trawling through 500 applications. Something that's kind of go, wow, that's cool. Look at their enthusiasm. That's really clever. So
Now, Nerida, I'm going to put you on the same spot as I put Sally. So with Brilliant Careers, how much is available? Who can apply? And what should they be thinking about?
So it's up to $250,000. However, I think it's going to be rare that we do that, up to $250,000. So again, one of the big take-home messages from today is to think strategically and certainly provide evidence that you need what you need in terms of your application. Again, we don't want to be prescriptive. I really, really encourage you to, again, it's great that we've got all these tools. You know, it's like learning about psychoanalysis and understanding it but not using it. So if these make sense to you, that's awesome. But if you want to break the mould. Go out there and rattle the cage, shake the tree and see what falls out. So, you know, it's going to have to be something that's you're going to have to wow us. Go out there and wow us. Take the challenge on. Present us with solutions. Present us with opportunities. We are looking for... This is a big amount of money, and it's like pushing the ball, and we need the ball to get momentum. So we are looking for you to be thinking about how your application is going to generate renewal, ongoing opportunities, that indeed the funding, if it's, you know, is a push, and in some way, even without funding moving forward, that you are growing both your revenues and or whatever the program is.
So there's growth from the project, potentially.
Ongoing opportunities, I think I would say. I mean, you can go growth. If it's business, you can look at growth and evolution. But again, if it's professional development opportunities, which I know people are talking about now, putting together schemes, again, we're looking for sustainability, because we probably won't have this money again, or will we, Fiona?
probably not.
Probably not.
Never say never. Never say never.
I was just also going to add to that. I mean, when you're thinking about your applications, think about what is this all about? We have a particularly horrible imbalance in terms of female writers and directors, particularly in features. So think about that. We have, we know we'd love to see new business models or distribution models to create more potential for female-originated projects, more access to female audiences. We always go around, and Natalie Miller Foundation is wonderful, and we've heard it before. Where are the leaders and in distribution companies, exhibition companies? Where are the decision makers in those companies? So is there something that you could do to address that? But basically, it's an open door. Just think about your career and say, as a woman, what would help me advance, or my friend who's a director or whatever. Just think.
Now, Sally, a really important question is that there's been a lot of talk about drama, a lot of talk about that content. What about the factual world? What about the documentary world? Where do they fit in all this?
Well, obviously, it's incredibly important. As I mentioned earlier on, it's only scripted material that's available, it's eligible for brilliant stories. And the reason we did this is partly as a pat on the back to the documentarians. It's not perfect, but the gender balance is much better. I don't know, I'm quite interested to think about why that might be. So there are a lot more female directors and writers, or not writers, but producers in factual. Also, the simple fact is there are a lot more factual practitioners than there are scripted, and if we opened the flood door to them as well, I don't think we'd ever emerge. The decision would be in about 2 years from now, which might be too late. However, people who in the factual area are absolutely eligible and delighted to receive their applications for stories if they want to move into scripted.
Right.
And then going into brilliant careers, absolutely doesn't matter what your background is. It could be, documentarians could be coming up with business plans and would be eligible.
Great. And also, I'll just make the point too that, as you guys are thinking about your businesses and your careers, we do understand that documentary is an important part of that. So if you're working across drama, we expect, that there will be applications that come in that have documentary components with that, because that can be really important revenue streams and parts of people's careers as well. So it's not completely excluded. But again, you have to be strategic because it's not necessarily the focus of the fund at this point.
And ladies, can people apply for both at the same time?
They can indeed. We've often said it would be quite interesting to see projects talking to each other across both of the programmes. However, the only exception would be, if for example, you've got something in Brilliant Stories and you're also including that in some kind of slate development idea and enterprise, that wouldn't work. You can't cover the same subject matter. But they certainly can overlap to a degree and talk to each other. And yes, you can go for both.
And what's the timeline? What are we looking at?
Okay, well, the deadline for stories is the 18th of March, and for careers is the 8th of April. We then go into our poor programme operations team, go into this massive logging and checking eligibility. We'll then be assessing internally until about mid-April, I think. From that, we'll have a long list. When we have a long list, we will then engage externals, and we expect that process to be over by early May, maybe the first week of May, at which point the shortlisted people will be informed. Decisions will then, there may be some interviews, there may be some further materials requested, because there'll be some applications which we really like, but we need some further information, or we want to meet the team and discuss certain aspects in more detail. And then the decisions are expected in the last week of April. June. So that's kind of a pretty...
Really June's good.
June would be better. June this year, that is, by the way.
Well, I think that's great. I think they have answered some really critical questions. We might actually open to more questions. Am I not on the mic enough? Has anyone else got any questions about Fiona?
As great as all that information was, thank you, Ian, for business planning, and we can all do better business plans, and we need to do better business plans. Can I clarify that you don't need a business plan to apply for brilliant careers?
Yes. We absolutely knew that. I think incorporating today was many things have come out of the research. And part of it has been looking at the Brilliant Careers applications, also women's issues and challenges for working within the workforce, and also the general population and community. So part of that offering was looking at business plans, and also in the competitive market when you have smaller companies and small end companies, also looking at what they can do to galvanise their position within the industry, greater industry. But we understand it's not a basic requirement.
Please, I know this is it's going to freak you out, but Screen Australia is not telling you what to do, okay? we are not putting up hoops for you to jump through. We really, really want you to think outside the box. And yes, we've got some criteria in there, but we are asking you to think and to come up with solutions to propose those.
Okay. Thanks, Nerida. Anyone else? Hi.
Cecilia.
Can you give us an idea what the total pot is for Brilliant Careers?
Look, we've got $3 million across both programs. And so nominally there's 1.5 across each program. However, part of running both programs side by side is so that we can create some flexibility. And so if there's more Brilliant Careers that come in, Brilliant Careers business in brackets, and that's going to help us to get where we need to go, then there may be more money allocated across there. Similarly with stories.
So Sally mentioned she's expecting to spread her 1.5 for over 30 or 40 recipients. I imagine it's a lesser amount for careers.
Yeah, Brilliant Careers is that you can apply for up to 250,000 per application. So we're reckoning, people aren't, we're hoping not everybody's going to apply for 250. We're reckoning we'll support about 10 applications out of that. Okay. It all depends what comes in, but that's our expectation.
Hiya, just a question re my brilliant stories. Wondering, in terms of the subject matter that you can apply for, does it have to be set in Australia or can it be set overseas?
No, it can be set anywhere.
Thank you.
This is about stimulating interesting, distinctive ideas, compelling ideas. And with that, we'd also encourage, women's storytellers to be working with genre. Look at genre. Don't limit yourselves in any way. Look at all of the possibilities. We do say that it's 2 applications from the same team. You can apply with different teams, but it's not lottery and it's not a machine gun. You won't get better hits with more, because we will look at those and go, oh, that's quite a lot of applications from that person. Are they really serious? So again, be strategic.
Nerida, on that front, you've recently started to support, and you've got, well, I know that it's been in long term in the planning, you have the feature film program, the initiative that's coming forward. Given the fact that there's money allocated for that sort of program, will there be also space for feature film, family features to apply for the stories?
Absolutely. If there's a 3-tick test, we are not limiting genre at all.
Great.
We are not limiting genre. We are encouraging genre. Absolutely. I think one of the things which we, I'm going to say it, one of the things that we do tend to see in production investment, and I do think it does skew the figures, is that we do see a lot of low-budget thriller/horrors, particularly from male filmmakers. It's funny that we don't see that from females. And it'd be really interesting, well, maybe not funny, because lots of those protagonists are tortured, captured, killed. Embrace it, what can a female perspective bring to sci-fi? What can a female perspective bring to, horror, to thriller, whatever it is. But also do know that we're not just looking for women's stories, whatever a woman's story is. We're not just looking for female protagonists. It is one of the tick tests, and it's something that we are looking at. But we're not limiting you.
Great. Thank you, Nerida. There's Margie Bryan.
On the point of international stories, would you also welcome any international team members? I'm thinking of a writer in particular, a female writer who would be a mentor.
Good question.
Should we do this as a duet? I think in normal circumstances we would, but because of the nature of these programs, it's got to be about Australian women. So it's not that we don't encourage that outside of this initiative, but for this initiative it really has to be Australian women.
And do know that just generally we don't pay for overseas talent as an Australian government funding organisation.
Thank you. Nikita.
Just wanted to ask, with the online part of the application, the stories one, there's no kind of guidelines about what that $50,000 is actually going towards? Like, do you have to produce the content within that, or is it all development?
Is that the $50,000?
Yeah.
Because it's development, and generally, if you look at our development programs, there has been a kind of shift in philosophy about what we consider development and how we support development and the creative process more generally. So you'll see in our general funds that we do support people whose practice is to film as part of development, and often that filming can actually end up on the screen, which is a great thing. So we are open to any kind of development process, and it would be great if we got some outcomes which involve screen content. But again, it has to make sense to your practice and your experience. We are opening the doors, everybody is eligible, but we will be looking at the size of the project, the skills of the team, and the ability of that team to actually get that project made for that money. Because we do have targets, and we would really like to hit those targets. I'm smiling at Fiona.
Patricia.
My young 19-year-old daughter was here earlier, but she had to go. But I'm just wondering on her behalf, she's, written a television series and pitched it, introduced it to somebody and she's pitched it. They really like it, right? A production company of a very high note. Is this the sort of thing where you could kind of reverse market, come to Screen Australia about the brilliant careers and say, okay, 19-year-old girl, no experience, no credits, no nothing, and say she could get some funding to then present to that production company to engage, you know what I mean, to sort of help that process continue on and mentor her through that process? Is that the sort of thing you're potentially looking at?
Yeah, I think that was something we could, if you look at, again, as Nerida said, if you look at our story guidelines, there's all kinds of things that we will pay for under the normal the guidelines, which includes pitching materials or teasers or sizzlers. I'm just struggling to think a little bit how it would fit into this program as a career.
I'm thinking of a more of a reverse marketing type of, to say to that production company, okay, she's got an idea, it's interesting, maybe they're not ready to invest in it yet financially. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But to reverse market it and say, but there's money to support her development, and you take her on and develop it type of thing in a reverse sense.
Whilst developing her as well.
Developing her, yeah.
That's the other point I wanted to make. We talk a lot about filling gaps and identifying gaps, but I do a lot of hand actions apparently when I'm doing this, but really want you to think about where the gaps is, but where are the connections? Where are the connections into audience? Where are the connections into marketplace? Where are the relationships? And particularly we're very interested in, a lot of professional development programs are kind of one-off hits, one-off experiences. I think, the best professional development outcomes that we see is when people have pathways and they're plotted. So indeed, if there was a project with a person who needed professional development and there was a company also, so really think laterally, don't box yourselves into one thing. Think about all of the possible connections.
Career strategy.
Totally.
Yep, that makes sense. Is there anything? Yes, another one up there?
It's a question from someone online.
Right, where are they from? Do we know where they're from?
It's Bryony Kidd. And she wants to know, what flexibility will there be in terms of having to have a producer or production company attached that is perhaps not as experienced as would typically be required for Screen Australia funding? The inaccessibility of top producers is clearly an impediment to women's projects getting up as things stand.
I think the whole point of dropping the eligibility has been to make us very, very flexible. Day to day, we have to have a bar or we would be completely flooded and swamped, but we're taking a hit on this one. And it's exactly that. The only thing I would say is that if it's a very inexperienced team, we're always looking to see if whilst we admire our ambition, we're always looking to see how realistic is this, the scale of this, in relation to the experience of the team. So if an inexperienced team came in with a $50 million concept, fantastic, but we just don't believe in funding people for things that are unlikely to ever get made, even though it may be a great concept. So, yeah, absolutely come in with an inexperienced team. If it's a good concept, you'll certainly get through to the next stage.
And
if not, fine.
The beauty of this synergy is as well as we can potentially see connections. We can see systems forming, and there's potential then to be able to, for inexperienced teams or new voices, to continue relationships with them.
That might be an example of, I'm just making this up on the spot, but a brilliant careers is somebody, a very experienced executive producer company that is making proposals to take on really strong concepts for inexperienced teams. That's what we mean by talking to each other, and that might be a great example of somebody who, I'm not saying we don't want to be flooded with lots of EP brilliant careers applications, but something like that would be interesting. with the right people.
Anyone else?
Don't be mean to be controversial, because you know I'm not. But just Margie's question, we angst a bit over that international involvement of people and whether it would count or not. So just workshopping it, because I don't know that we've got to any great solution. If there was an international component in a Brilliant Stories application, we wouldn't exclude it as long as the 3-point test was reached. So let's say, for argument's sake, we had protagonist, director and producer ticked. For argument's sake, a writer, international writer, could be involved. Is that right? I mean, a genuine question.
Yep. That's what I'm really interested in terms of all this exciting, opportunity, is that part of it is also about mentoring. And this international female writer is very keen and has looked at this online, thinks it's the most exciting thing she's ever seen. She hates the male director she's just recently written a Hollywood film with. Don't tell her I said that. But she really got very excited about this initiative and said to me, I would love to come to Australia, do some seminars, workshops. I want to work with more women. And I just thought that is what this was also about, that we need, we need to be able to partner up with international, experienced people.
If she was part of, and again, Fiona and Sally jump on me, and Diana's in the corner too, and she'll slap me around. We can't pay for her as a writer on a project. She could satisfy the tick if she was on the project. Again, we have to look at the broad range and who we're supporting, but then also in terms of brilliant careers and professional development opportunities and events and programs, then that's absolutely a possibility in terms of bringing people from offshore and their skill set in here and creating relationships and yep.
However, on official co-productions, under a point system, you can engage with international colleagues who are paid for out of the budget, but it's under an official treaty, yeah?
I think the difference here is you can't have an official co-production at the development level. You're absolutely right. If it's production, great. You can have international writers and they get paid for.
You can see we're struggling a little bit, and we need a little bit of a workshop, because I don't know whether it meets the test, but it shouldn't exclude using them. I just don't know how we do it, guys. But yeah, thank you, Margie.
You can tell we're trying to be flexible still, can't you?
Any other questions? Yes? Claire?
I know in the past some funding bodies that are screen-based have restricted games as interactive media. Are there any restrictions as long as they're narrative-based in this situation?
So you can see the heads shaking, and probably online you can't see what's happening in the audience here. At this point we've said interactive and online, and it's episodic linear narrative. That's not to say you can't develop IP, underlying story, worlds or whatever through these mechanisms. So you can absolutely, if you're thinking of a game in one area, you could be looking at an online episodic, virtual reality projects. Bring it on. How awesome will that be? But at this point it's linear drama. But again, think laterally, and it could speak to a game or it could speak to a film or whatever. And don't discount this online. Please, everybody keeps thinking that the feature film is at the pinnacle of what you should be aiming at. Please embrace the opportunities with the online section of this fund to do proof of concepts for television, to stretch your directing muscles, or get your teams involved with each other and test that out. There's so many opportunities.
Yep, part of what we do here is to try and give as much clarity as we can. Our funding for games has been removed, and so the funding won't be for games. So, maybe in the future it can be, but unfortunately, just to be clear, unfortunately not.
But you can still think laterally and do it somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, to Nerida's point, basically a lot of online interactive stories may end up as games as well, so who knows. But I think it is important to be clear when we have a finite pot of money, and the government said no to games. However, we don't rule that out in the future, hopefully.
The government's not fun. No to games. Anyone else got any more questions? Any more questions? Yes.
Sending in our application online, will they be printed out and then reviewed manually, or are they going to be looked at online?
We are moving towards, well, we have pretty much moved towards paperless office, and so we do a lot of our applications on our iPads. So if there are any concerns, though, you can certainly speak to us later.
We're not asking for much, so
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Anyone else?
If there's I do want to make one point before we have to go to, and it's an Auntie Nerida rather than a bureaucratic kind of point. I'm old enough to be an aunt now. One of the things I really want you to think about when you're looking at these careers and stories and thinking about your businesses is how you define success. I think we have a default position where it's kind of, oh, it must be about lots of money and it's about lots of films and stories or something, but after you've gone through this, have a glass of wine, nice cup of tea, have a sit down and think about what success actually looks like for you. Particularly as women, you know, it might be about balance. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no hierarchy of what success should be, and it would be great before you make an application to really think about what you're actually working towards. In the same way that we think about a creative vision for a story, you are your own protagonist in your life stories. So think about your themes.
I think that's a great note. Do we have one more? Okay, sorry, it's an online one. We'll definitely take it.
It's a question from Corrie Chen. She wants to know, if you have a project, for example, a feature film as part of your slate in Brilliant Careers, are you able to then apply for further draft funding later down the track at the end of Brilliant Careers?
Yes.
Great. Well, I think we'll wrap up the afternoon with that, and I thank everyone for coming. I'd like to thank Screen Australia, Fiona, Sally, Nerida for putting today on. That has been a great day, so thank you very much.
Oh, and
to the event team, thank you all.
Obviously the panellists and Ian and David Sharp and Lauren Hillier, what we did today was we actually said, you guys work in this space, you guys, you know, work with people, what shall we do? So they've come up and they've designed this and they've delivered it, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.